year, of course, Baltimore was rocked by violent unrest in the wake of the death of Freddie Gray. And right from the start of your campaign, you've been dogged by those who blame your tough-on-crime, so-called zero-tolerance policies as mayor for contributing to that unrest. What responsibility do you bear?
Oh, this is going to be good.
When I ran for mayor in 1999, Lester, it was not because our city was doing well. It was because we were burying over 300 young, poor black men every single year. And that's why I ran, because, yes, Black Lives Matter.
Oh, I don't believe that.
And we did a number of things. We weren't able to make our city immune from setbacks as the Freddie Gray unrest and tragic death showed. But we were able to save a lot of lives, doing things that actually work to improve police and community relations. The truth of the matter is, we created a civilian review board, and many of these things are in the new agenda for criminal justice reform that I put forward. We created a civilian review board, gave them their own detectives. We required the reporting of discourtesy, use of excessive force, lethal force. I repealed the possession of marijuana as a crime in our state. I drove our incarceration rate down to 20-year lows, and drove violent crime down to 30-year lows, and became the first governor south of the Mason-Dixon line to repeal the death penalty. I feel a responsibility every day to find things that work.
All right, let's talk more about policing and the criminal justice system. Senator Sanders, a few times tonight we're going to hear from some of the most prominent voices on YouTube, starting with Francesca Ramsey, who tackles racial stereotypes through her videos. Let's watch.
Hey, I'm Francesca Ramsey. I believe there's a huge conflict of interest when local prosecutors investigate cases of police violence within their own communities. For example, last month, the officers involved in the case of 12-year-old Tamir Rice were indicted. How would your presidency ensure that incidents of police violence are investigated and prosecuted fairly?
Senator Sanders.
Apologize for not hearing all of that question.
Would you like me to read it back to you?
Yeah.
Prosecutors, I believe there's a huge conflict of interest when local prosecutors investigate cases of police violence within their communities. Most recently, we saw this with the non-indictment of the officers involved in the case of 12-year-old Tamir Rice. How would your presidency ensure incidents of police violence are investigated and prosecuted fairly?
This is a responsibility for the U.S. Justice Department to get involved. Whenever anybody in this country is killed while in police custody, this should automatically trigger a U.S. Attorney General's investigation. And I speak as a mayor who worked very closely and well with police officers, the vast majority of whom are honest, hardworking people trying to do a difficult job. But let us be clear. If a police officer breaks the law, like any public official, that officer must be held accountable. And thirdly, we have got to demilitarize our police departments so they don't look like occupying armies. We got to move toward community policing. And fourthly, we have got to make our police departments look like the communities they serve in their diversity.
America are the group of a deadly heroin epidemic spanning race and class, hitting small towns and cities alike. It's become a major issue in this race. In a lot of places where you've been campaigning, despite an estimated $1 trillion spent, many say the war on drugs has failed. So what would you do?
Well, Lester, you're right. Everywhere I go to campaign, I'm meeting families who are affected by the drug problem that mostly is opioids and heroin now. And lives are being lost and children are being orphaned. And I've met a lot of grandparents who are now taking care of grandchildren. So I have tried to come out with a comprehensive approach that, number one, does tell the states that we will work with you from the federal government, putting more money, about $1 billion a year, to help states have a different approach to dealing with this epidemic. The policing needs to change. Police officers must be equipped with the antidote to a heroin overdose or an opioid overdose known as Narcan. They should be able to administer, so should firefighters and others. We have to move away from treating the use of drugs as a crime and instead move it to where it belongs, as a health issue. and we need to divert more people from the criminal justice system into drug courts, into treatment and recovery.
Well, that's
so
tough.
this is the kind of approach that we should take in dealing with what is now a growing
Senator
epidemic.
Sanders, would you like to respond?
I agree with everything the Secretary said, but let me just add this. There is a responsibility on the part of the pharmaceutical industry and the drug companies who are producing all of these drugs and not looking at the consequence of it. And second of all, when we talk about addiction being a disease, the Secretary is right. What that means is we need a revolution in this country in terms of mental health treatment. People should be able to get the treatment that they need when they need it, not 2 months from now, which is why I believe in universal health care and mental
Okay, let me turn this slide on. We're going to do a door prize. Alright, so we're going to do our first door prize. Very exciting stuff. Whose name is it going to be? Should I take this crumpled piece or this flat out one? Rusty? How do you say your last name? Lawrence? Rusty Lawrence? There you are. A gift certificate to the Blue Ox, any of the Blue Ox restaurants. That includes the Phoenix, Joe Mama's Pizza, the Max.
Wow.
What's the other one? Yeah. So, and a bumper sticker. Enjoy. So we're going to do one at every commercial break. Again, I just wanted to remind some of the new people that came in after we talked that we are trying to organize volunteers. So everybody in this room, let's say half the people in this room gave us 2 hours of their time, Bernie's going to get the nomination here in Oklahoma, right? He's going to get the majority of votes. So think about that. Half of you, if you donate just a couple hours of your time helping us phone bank or neighborhood canvassing, we can get the numbers on our side. So that's just a friendly reminder to volunteer to help us. Thanks.
I'm getting popcorn everywhere.
Right.
expressed disagreement that would be health care. Senator Sanders and Secretary Clinton, you both mentioned it in your 100-day priorities. Let's turn to my colleague Andrea Mitchell. How to lead that question.
Thank you, Lester. Secretary Clinton, Senator Sanders favors what he calls Medicare
Yeah, I'm just
for all. And you said that what he is proposing would tear up Obamacare and replace it.
You can use this on your phone. There's my levels. They're really good. Yeah, see, I got people chatting, all right.
Well, Andrea, I am absolutely committed to universal health care. I've worked on this for a long time. People may remember that I took on the health insurance industry back in the 90s, and I didn't quit until we got the Children's Health Insurance Program that insures 8 million kids. And I certainly respect Senator Sanders' intentions. But when you're talking about health care, the details really matter. And therefore, we have been raising questions about the 9 bills that he introduced over 20 years as to how they would work and what would be the impact on people's health care. He didn't like that. His campaign didn't like it either. And tonight he's come out with a new health care plan. And again, we need to get into the details. But here's what I believe. The Democratic Party in the United States worked since Harry Truman to get the Affordable Care Act passed. We finally have a path to universal health care. We've accomplished so much already. I do not want to see the Republicans repeal it, and I don't want to see us start over again with a contentious debate. I want us to defend and build on the Affordable Care Act and improve it.
Secretary Clinton didn't answer your question. Because what her campaign was saying, Bernie Sanders was fought for universal health care for my entire life. He wants to end Medicare, end Medicaid, end the Children's Health Insurance Program. That is nonsense. What a Medicare for All program does is finally provide in this country health care for every man, woman, and child as a right. Now, the truth is that after Delaware Roosevelt, Harry Truman, you know what they believed in? They believed that health care should be available to all of our people. I'm on the committee that wrote the Affordable Care Act. I made the Affordable Care Act along with Jim Clyburn a better piece of legislation. I voted for it. But right now, what we have to deal with is the fact that 29 million people still have no health insurance. We are paying the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, getting ripped off. And here's the important point. We are spending far more per person on health care than the people of any other country. My proposal, provide health care to all people, get private insurance out of health insurance, lower the cost of health care for middle-class families by $5,000. That's the vision we need to take.
I'm not sure whether we're talking about the plan you just introduced tonight or we're talking about the plan you introduced 9 times in the Congress. But the fact is, we have the Affordable Care Act. That is one of the greatest accomplishments of President Obama, of the Democratic Party, and of our country. And we have also
She will not win points on this. Can you believe this stuff?
We have seen the
I couldn't write this.
of pre-existing conditions keeping people from getting insurance. We have seen women
Her husband did that.
for our insurance than men, and we've seen young people up to the age of 26 being able to stay on their parents' policy. Now, there are things we can do to improve it, but to tear it up and start over again, pushing our country back into that kind of a contentious debate, I think is the wrong direction.
I have to talk about something that's actually
No one is tearing this up. We're going to go forward. But the Secretary neglected to mention,
Will they
not just the 29
melt down
million still
tonight?
have no health insurance, that even more are underinsured with huge co-payments and deductibles. Tell me why. We are spending almost 3 times more than the British who guarantee health care to all of their people. 50% more than the French, more than the Canadians. The vision from FDR and Harry Truman was health care for all people as a right in a cost-effective way. We're not going to tear up the Affordable Care Act. I have to write it, but we are going to move on top of that to